Well, we just finished talking about Bucks, Dolphins, and saying that it's the last chance saloon for the Bucks. But one of the things that will give them hope is that the Panthers welcome the Seahawks, the best road team in the NFL and one of the best teams in the league, full stop, on current form. Shane, the Seahawks are 7.5 point favourites on the road. It's rare to see a team carrying more than a one-score lead, especially going up against a division leader with playoff aspirations of its own.
Yeah, I think that's probably just a testament to the fact that the Seahawks have been just able to play some really, really good football. Even though, if you look at like almost every statistical breakdown possible of that Thursday night game that they won against LA, you're like, how did LA lose this game? And we'll talk about the Rams later on in a second in terms of the nature of that. I mean, you have to remember, like Jackson Smith and Jigba in that match was completely shut out in the first half. The Seahawks are on a 5-game win streak, fair enough, and they're become really aggressive and efficient in the red zone. But Darnold, when it comes to these big games, consistently throws a lot of interceptions. He threw 2 against the Rams. There was the 5 turnovers against the Rams previously. And this game isn't in really, really big game territory, as their matchup against the 49ers will be next week. But it isn't really miles away. I think, there will still be a lot of pressure on Darnold and co. to play mistake-free football. And that's what they need to do coming up against Carolina. And there's something not, sleep on this Carolina defense. They've had 5 of their last 7 opponents under 21 points. Their secondary is holding quarterback to a sub-90 rate. What I was talking about earlier about the ability to read and what the defense is able to do, these are 2 teams who will be among the best in the last few weeks in terms of you're watching it and the defense is disguising what it is it's actually trying to do. It's been the strength for Carolina, which has set up their, albeit streaky offense to maybe pull out a win against Buccaneers and then maybe drop a dud as to have a couple of times. But for the Seahawks, the thing is, the offense that defense is propping up is a lot more confident in itself. It has a greater idea as to what its identity is, even if more than 50% of their offensive output in a lot of these games is that connection between Darnold and Jackson Smith and Jigba, which does make it a little bit one-dimensional and easy for a good defensive team to plan against. But as much as the Panthers will have a greater need, they won't know what the result is in Tampa. Next week is their Super Bowl. I think, regardless of whatever way the season goes, or this week goes. And I just think the Seahawks, who we know have been so good on the road this year, have had 3 days extra to rest and will still come in with a huge amount of confidence and momentum and belief that this could be their year after what happened on Thursday Night Football last year against the Rams. That I just don't think they're going to let a Panthers team with a streaky quarterback, get the better of them, because their defense is too good, I think, for Bryce Young to have one of his better games here. I think his good performance, and I'd even suggest and be suspicious that even inside the coaching staff, the people who are putting together tape and all that, I think they may be sidelining 20% of their time, more of their time than normal, into planning ahead for that Buccaneers game, which may almost sacrificing planning for the Seahawks, because they may just be expecting the Seahawks test to be too much for them. And for that reason, I think Seattle has got to get a good win here.
Kieran, if you're talking about bulletin board material, the fact that a team comes into your building as 7.5 point favourites when you've won nearly every single game, I think the Panthers have only dropped 1 at home, they'll be insulted by that, regardless of how they may be looking ahead to that Bucs game.
Yeah, and the Panthers have they've so many reasons to be hopeful here. Like the Seahawks come into Carolina with one of the top pressure ratings in the league in terms of their defense and the pressure they can put on the quarterback. But Bryce Young has been one of the best and most productive passers under pressure this season, and so he hasn't shirked away from responsibility. They've got such a far greater record, or far better record at home than away this season, so they seem to be comfortable at home, albeit the Seahawks have one of the better traveling away records in the league. They also have these signature wins. They've beaten the Rams, they've beaten the Packers, so they're not afraid of the quote unquote big boys in the league. So they have an awful lot going for them. But at the end of the day, I just think the Seahawks are top to bottom. They're just the better team. They're just the better all around team. And Ben will be delighted to hear me say that the Seahawks are creeping into so many people's Super Bowl conversation now. And now that the fact that Sam Darnold has this signature win under his belt against the Rams, having thrown 2 picks and having faced adversity within the game. And, we often mention and we give great credit to quarterbacks like Justin Herbert for being able to win games when he's not jumping off the stat sheet. Well, that's what Sam Darnold did last week. He came away with a signature win when we questioned whether he could do that in the biggest of games under pressure. And Seahawks fans, I'm sure, will be massively buoyed by that win last week. And I don't see any other outcome than the Seahawks going into town and taking care of business against the Panthers. But which will set up the ultimate showdown in the South next week as well. So that'll be one that might well end up being one of the few games with major permutations next week. So we look forward to that regardless. But I think that the Seahawks put the pressure on, keep the foot on the gas and keep themselves well in contention for the number 1 seed.
Well, if you happen to be watching Red Zone on Sunday, and hopefully you're in the cozy confines of the Arlington Hotel and Bar when you're doing so, there will be a 20-minute window where the Giants Raiders will be the only game in town. So that might be as good a time as any to take your bathroom break, make that cup of tea, order something from the bar, any of the above, because the only thing that these two will be disputing between them is who will end up with the number 1 overall pick in the draft, unless somebody comes up on the rails and manages to outlose them over the next 2 weeks. For that reason, we will be quick picking. I'm going to take the Raiders in this one. Shane?
I thought we were doing a separate podcast in this game. This is not the most consequential game of the weekend. It will be the most New York Giants thing ever to lose this game and then win next week at home against the Cowboys, and then completely make a mess of their season in front of their home fans in terms of the number 1 pick. So I go for the Raiders to win this one.
Kieran?
I think Craig, Kieran and Brian are going to do a separate pod on that to preview this game. But no, Brock Bowers is out for the season. A very disgruntled, apparently, Max Crosby has been shut down for the season as well. So I think the Giants just don't lose this one.
Yeah, Pete Carroll had to address that in his press conference. He did it in an interesting way. If you check that clip out, I'm not sure how convincing it was, but he did his best to try and put that one to bed. Reader, that is not put to bed. At 9:25 on Sunday, the Eagles travel to Buffalo for one of the better games of what is already a pretty good slate this weekend. The Eagles have been on a roll of late. They have put behind them some of the form that led to them getting the Boo Birds at home at Lincoln Financial Field. They go to Buffalo, though, to face the Bills, who have turned their season around themselves and are 2.5-point favourites at home. The Eagles over the past couple of weeks have looked much more like the 2024 Eagles, albeit against relatively modest opposition. Saquon suddenly looking like 2024 Saquon all over again. 120 plus yards 2 of the last 3 games, and he's breaking off some of those explosive runs. AJ Brown has gone for 95 plus yards in 4 of his last 5 games, and it's starting to look like the AJ Brown of old again. Jalen Hurts picking up gains with his legs, being relatively conservative in the passing game, but finding the big guy downfield. And if it's not AJ Brown, it's Devontae Smith. I think there's going to be a hell of a battle. I can see the Bills leaning more heavily on that run game again, as they did to great effect last week. The Eagles, as we saw against the Bears 3-4 weeks ago, can be got at in the run game. That defensive front is not as invincible as it looked last year. We've also seen on the other side of the trenches what the lack of Landon Johnson did to the Eagles. We know they can be got at, and the Bills are as good a team as any at taking advantage of those deficiencies. Not that there are many deficiencies in the Eagles team. This is a fascinating game for me. Both teams rounding into near playoff form at just about the right time. I think as the home team, that's the only thing that really separates it for me. The Bills should just about have enough to squeak this one out, but it's going to be, I imagine, quite a low-scoring affair. Both teams are going to be cagey enough. They're going to try and pound it up the middle, and both James Cook and Saquon Barkley look in sensational form. The running game is a good thing to be able to lean on at this time of the year, particularly in the confines of a frigid Orchard Park, but I think the Bills will just about squeak this one out. I think it's Buffalo in this one for me. Shane, how do you see it?
Before the season started, we all sort of did our things to who we would think would make the Super Bowl, and I picked Eagles-Bills as my preseason pick, and I'm not saying I'm sticking with that considering the way other teams are playing, but both of these teams I think are starting to really peak at the right time. I mean, the Eagles, look, let's be fair about this, the last 2 games they played against were against the Commanders and the Raiders, so yeah, but if in terms of taking the opportunity they had to try and reset, and as well as that, unlock the one biggest problem that they have with their offense in comparison to the 2024 Eagles, as you were saying there, Conor, is trying to get more out of Saquon Barkley. He's been a lot more efficient in the last 3 games. He's been getting much more explosive runs, his confidence in the offensive line, and be able to find him gaps. I think that's going to be a huge thing coming into Buffalo, who themselves have had one of the best run games in the league this year, and I think have been consistently improving. I mean, we think of the temerity they had to be able to come back against the Patriots, the run game with James Cook. He's leading the NFL in rushing at over 1,500 yards for the season, which is, which we haven't. It's kind of slid under the radar a little bit because we're talking about Jonathan Taylor so much at the start of the year. That's just become a really big thing. And as well as that, Josh Allen's has managed to put up 12 rushing touchdowns as well, which really helps their cause. It's almost like seeing what we thought the Ravens would be with their quarterback running back combination, but the Bills are being able to execute that much better. It's very, very difficult, I think, to pick who will be victorious here. But if I'm sitting back, and I understand what you're saying about the home field advantage and everything the Bills have going for them, but I just think now because the Eagles, we've seen it so many times before in terms of the mentality roller coaster that it comes with being a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. They seem to reach a point in October, early November, as it did this year around Thanksgiving. No, it was before Thanksgiving, when they lost to the Cowboys, where the questions and the pressure is so much. But diamonds is formed under pressure. They come out of the other side of it, fix what has been what are the main problems that they have, grind out wins, find ways to turn close situations in their favor as opposed to letting things build. Jalen Hurts becomes more efficient in the pass game. AJ Brown does less talking in the press conferences and more talking on the field because he's getting more ball. The offensive coordinator isn't getting his house, eggs thrown in his house because he's just doing a better job and being able to actually get more out of that squad. And I think this game is almost perfectly set up for them to try and shut down any doubters, to go into Buffalo, a tough place to go, especially this time of the year, and to prove to themselves, more importantly, but also to the world that, look, despite the dip we had here, we're now fully in Super Bowl form here. We're still the ones with the reigning champions. We've got the title belt. Someone's going to have to come and take this off us. And for that reason, I think the Eagles are going to grind out a close win here.
Kieran.
Yeah, I don't see it that way. I think there's just something different about the Eagles this year. I don't see them kind of having that resurgence in the playoffs. I think they're going to stutter to the playoffs and then maybe whimper out in round one or round two. And I could completely be eating my words in a few weeks' time. I do appreciate that. But I think the Bills, that given their home record in December and January, has just been immense under Josh Allen, or with Josh Allen under center. I think the Bills come away with this.
Well, that is a game with consequences. Sunday Night Football sees the Bears travel to Santa Clara to take on the 49ers in Levi Stadium. Kieran, that is a game with consequences. The 49ers can win their two remaining games, win the division and clinch the NFC's number one seed. The Bears still have a shot at the NFC number one seed, depending on which way results go in their direction. They also are in the catbird seat as far as winning the NFC North is concerned. That can change for one or other, will change for one or other of these teams this weekend. And they will face very different Week 18s depending on the outcome of this one. The 49ers 2.5-point favourites at home.
Yeah, two of the most unlikely success stories, I think, of the year. The Bears, just because there was so much unknown. And while everybody, I suppose, had an inkling of how good Ben Johnson could be as a head coach, nobody expected the resurgence to happen so quickly. It almost felt like a rebuild year, and you were kind of saying a winning season and maybe a run at the playoffs would be a success. But he's turned that around so fast, so quickly. And the last few weeks, unfortunately, I've got to see the Bears up close and personal as a Packers fan. And even in the win that the Packers had at Lambeau, I was highly impressed by the Bears. I just think we've talked about their offensive line and the run game, Monongai and Swift, and what they've been able to do in the last few weeks. They're such a huge threat on both sides of the ball because they're just turnover machines as well. What are they? Have they 20 over? They've well over 20 turnovers, but the nearest team to them is barely over 10.
They've 30 in total, and the Jags are the next nearest on 19. It's crazy.
Oh, was it 19? Okay, so but I mean, it's just. That's huge. I mean, that's such a huge margin. And that's going to be the key to whether they can take down this 49ers team is whether they can be opportunistic, because the Niners have coughed up turnovers as well this year. I think they're 24th in turnover giveaways this season as well. But having said that, I talk about unlikely success stories, and it's just been the 49ers overcoming injury after injury after injury, and just the job that they've done in coaching through both coordinators and play calling has just been immense. I mean, what they've got from the squad that they've had is just, in fairness, we just cannot but give them credit for it. And coming into this playoff run now, you've got their best players and their best weapons performing at an absolute top level. It's Christian McCaffrey and it's George Kittle and Brock Purdy with 5 touchdown passes last week. This is such a pick'em game, and I said at the top of the show that I don't think the Bears are going to lose 2 games to finish out the season. But I think they might lose this one, and it'll give us something to be excited for again. It'll just give us something to we don't want everything to be dead and buried, but going into week 18, and just by virtue of, I think that's the only reason I'm picking it. It's kind of more what I want to happen for the interest of week 18 as opposed to what I think will happen. It's a coin flip game for me, but on the sheet the pick sheet I've picked the 49ers, and I'm just going to stick with that.
Yeah, to your point, Kieran, the Bears have made an awful lot out of being the unknowns this year, and I think it's worked really well for them. I think they've caught a lot of teams by surprise, and I think they've improved over the course of the season. And what you saw in week 2 or 3 is certainly not what you're getting now. I mean, they got absolutely opened up by the Lions. They dropped their opening game to the Vikings. And to your point, if you looked at both the Niners and the Bears, at that stage of the season, the Bears at 0-2, the Niners with their entire medical facility full with their star players all injured, you would have said neither of these teams would have a hope in hell of duking it out for the playoffs, never mind potentially getting the number 1 seed in the NFC. But that's the way the season has panned out. I think both teams, styles make fights, and both teams have ways to hurt each other here, which makes this a fascinating battle. I think the Bears are the kind of offense that the 49ers defense will tend to struggle with. However, I think the 49ers offense is the kind of offense that the Bears defense has struggled with. The one factor that might play in Chicago's favor, to your point again, is that opportunistic turnover mentality that they have. They've had an insanely high turnover differential this year for 2 reasons. One, because statistically they've had a break of the ball, and they've just gotten a lot of those ones that end up dropping to the floor in other seasons, or ones that get tipped and don't quite get caught in other seasons. All of them have fallen in the Bears' favor this year. At a certain point, that is going to turn around, but I've been saying that every week for the last 10 weeks, and it hasn't turned around just yet. The other thing that people kind of miss about the Bears is their turnover differential is so high because they do not give the ball away. They cough up very few turnovers. And, I know it's a lazy thing to say, and you can say it about pretty much any game, but I think this one really makes that very clear, that if the 49ers can turn Caleb Williams and that Bears offense over, if Brock Purdy manages not to throw up those very risky looking passes that a Bears secondary will absolutely be all over, that's the key to victory for the Niners here. The way they played last week is the way they're going to have to play again this week if they're going to win this one. I do think they will, though. I think, to your point, I don't see the Bears losing their last 2 games of the season. I don't see them going out like that. I do see them bouncing back if they do drop this one. But this, to me, is just a bridge a little bit too far for a Bears team that has ridden its luck. And, for all the good wins that they've had in recent weeks when the schedule has got tougher, for all the questions they have answered, there are still more to answer, because they were lucky in Aaron Rodgers being injured for the Steelers. They were lucky in the fact that Jordan Love had to exit the game for the Packers. They've had an awful lot of luck, even apart from that, in that game, to recover the onside kick, first of all, and for everything to click in the way it did. I don't think they're going to get that same slice of luck again this week, because that's just not the way the world works. And I think the 49ers have just a little bit too much for them in Santa Clara. Shane?
Game of the week. I'm really looking forward to watching this one on Sunday night. I'm backing the Bears to win, I think, for 2 reasons. One, Purdy, I think, has gotten a lot of joy from his unwavering aggression and throwing a lot of balls downfield. When you're against a team that gets a lot of interceptions, that's actually a bit of a weakness. But I think the main thing is the fact that you look at the 49ers defense, and yes, you're right. I mean, they've been coached exceptionally well. They've been able to get so much good results out of it. They haven't faced a lot of really, really good run teams, and they're facing against outside of what we were saying earlier, the Josh Allen, James Cook thing. DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monungai are the second best running tandem in the league right now. The last time that the 49ers played who I would consider to be a good run team, they let up over 40 points against the LA Rams. And that was a long time ago. Things have changed, etc. But I have too much belief in the Bears to see them drop this one. I don't think there's anything in the regular season that's the bridge too far for them just yet. The postseason is a different conversation. So for that reason, I'm going with Chicago.
Well, it is to those self-same Rams you just mentioned, Shane, that we go next for the last game of the week, the Monday Night Football game, where the Rams are travelling to Mercedes-Benz Stadium to play the Falcons in Atlanta. The Rams will feel rightly sore at having lost that game against Seattle, because if you looked at the box score and if you looked at the stats, you would have said LA wins that game all day long. That's not always the way football works, and that's one of the many reasons why we love it. They'll be very sore, and they will see the Falcons as the ideal prey. But will it work out that way?
I have a funny feeling it will. I mean, we talk about how much some of these teams who have been knocked out are really playing for things. Some of them have pride, some of them have rivalries they want to settle and all this. I don't see the Falcons being in any of those conversations. There's a coach who's probably trying to coach his position, but that doesn't mean that players are going to actually play for him. Against the Rams team, who, like you said, I mean, Matt Stafford has had a 100-plus rating in the last 3 games he's played and over 280 yards, 457 and 3 touchdowns against Seattle last week. Now, again, the fact he played overtime probably bumps up those yards, but I mean, like the amount of points that the Rams keep putting up. Last week, Stafford did not take a single sack against the Seattle Seahawks, who were one of the best sack getters in the league, and they still managed to get Puka Nacua to move around for over 220 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's some really, really good form. It was a mixture of, a good, we talked about that Thursday night game. It was a mixture of everything that sort of went against the Rams. It was a bit of Thursday night weirdness, the 2-point conversion and the special teams return and everything else. That doesn't mean that the Rams are a bad team and they're not bottlers in it. It's just one of those crazy, crazy football games. But they've had plenty of time to stew on that.
Don't talk to me about ball.
What? There's 11 games? Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of cultural references I need to develop in my own thing. If you would what was it? Lost train of thought. Sorry, I said I lost train of thought. The train of thought it's quite simple.
You talk about not having pop culture reference. This is a man with a Spotify age of 67. You just need to wind back some of those pop culture references. Like if you can nail your Waylon Jennings tunes, you should be able to pick up a Tim Flowers reference from early doors of the Premier League.
Yeah, that's true. It was funny. I was driving down to Kilkenny yesterday. Listened to what was it, the Creedence Clearwater Revival. So I think I'm bumping that listening age up a little bit. Look, the story of this game is going to be very simple. The Rams have had 11 days just to stew on this and to try and have somebody to be the whipping boys that their offense is going to run all over. And there's nothing the Falcons offer that makes you think that this game is going to be any different. So yeah, give me the Rams to win.
Well, since Shane has teed me up so nicely, Kieran, will the Falcons see a bad moon rising when the Rams come to town?
Hey. No, they're not going to be the fortunate ones this weekend.
No. Has it been cut?
Did we lose Kieran down on the corner there?
Oh my God! Unbelievable!
Just when he was in clear flow. Well, if we don't get a revival, oh, here he is.
Am I back? Am I back?
You're back.
Okay. No, I think the Rams power through, and I keep it short and simple. I think the Devontae Adams injury, I think, was the difference between them winning and losing last week, and their production level just dropping that bit in the red zone. But that's not going to be an issue against the Falcons. They're too strong. They're too strong on offense and defense, and the Falcons, I think, are on high on my list of biggest disappointments in this season with the talent that they've put on the field between Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts coming into form finally. They've still been a letdown this season, and no, I don't think the Rams dropped the ball on this one.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Not much more to be said on it than that, other than to say that we will be back with our instant reaction to the games on Sunday, and normal service will be resumed next week. Break, and sorry, the broadband is lagging here, but we'll sign off, and we will be back with instant reaction to the Sunday games. As I was saying, it's Rams for me, by the way. Sorry, I didn't actually pick that last game, just in case you were in any doubt. We'll be back with you very soon on the Irish NFL Show.
Great odds, you're in control,